Hello, good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Daily Record Hotline Live. Myself, Keith Jackson, and my little pal, Scott McDermott. We actually just decided to stay in the office last night, didn't we? A wee sleepover on that jammies.
Hey, take away in a bottle of wine.
I wish, school nights. Scott, I mean, yesterday was busy. Today's going to be busy as well. I mean, you've already got, what is it? I think it's 18 Champions League ties tonight, involving 36 teams, all simultaneous kick-off times and all manner of possible kind of qualification scenarios to come out of it. It's a bit of a kind of Wednesday night mayhem, isn't it?
Yep.
Obviously, our focus is going to be on Villa Park, where Celtic will meet up with Aston Villa in a Battle of Britain, with both sides with a potential outside chance of, directly qualifying for the final stage of the knockouts. Without having to go through the playoffs. And so I think outside chance for Celtic. Villa very much think they're in the mix for top 8, but they need a win to have any chance. In fact, there's even possible scenarios that they could get 3 points tonight and still not qualify. Yeah. So all to play for. I think it's going to be a cracker at Villa Park tonight, and we'll be joined very shortly by Mick Gannon and Craig Swan, who are at the stadium right now, just getting themselves together before they cover the match for us. Scott, I might as well go cut to the chase with you. What are you expecting from this game, result-wise?
I think Villa will win, Jacko, I must admit. And the reason for that is just the players missing for Celtic. Last night when we came on air, we knew obviously about Maida being suspended and Kyogo obviously not there anymore, but it wasn't until we went off air, obviously the Cameron Carter-Vickers news broke, and Brendan Rodgers confirmed.
That's not helpful.
That's a body blow for Celtic. And look, Celtic have got a really good squad, no strength and depth, we know that, but I think when you take out Carter-Vickers, Maida and Kyogo, and let's be honest, they're probably going to replace them with Liam Scales, Yang and Adam Ida. As much as they're good players, I think there's a drop-off there in quality. I think Brendan Rodgers will know that. That's why he's obviously trying to add to the squad again in this window. He's obviously brought in Jota. We expect a couple more. But just as you say, I think the motivation for Villa is maybe a bit higher. They're at home. They're obviously a quality team anyway. They've got injury problems of their own, especially at the back. But I just think they'll have the bit between their teeth tonight.
In front of home crowds.
Yeah.
It should be a brilliant atmosphere. The place should be kind of jumping, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it'll be great. And listen, I think Celtic will score because, as I say, I think Villa are missing key players at the back. I think Celtic always create chances. When you've got likes of Kuhn and Engels and Carl McGregor, they'll create chances. But I could see Celtic scoring, but I think Villa will win. I think it'll be 2-1 or 3-1 tonight.
Well, I've gone a little bit more optimistic. I think I went with. I think Celtic can get out of there with a draw, and I think that'd be a real good end. But that was granted before we learnt about Cameron Carter-Vickers, so we shall see.
Would be a great result.
The bad news is the boys have been in touch for down south. They are experiencing sort of chronic technical problems outside the stadium, which, by the way, that's fine because that's what happens every night in Hotline Live. There's always a chronic issue of some sort. As William Sloan has already pointed out, no slouch, Sloaney. I'm guessing Daniel must still be on the sick. I told you last night, William, we've sent him packing to Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
So good luck with that. Actually, that's not the case. I think he's actually going to the Milan derby at the weekend, so I've granted him time off, and I'm regretting it instantly. In fact, I might get him to host for the San Siro.
He can be a live link for the San Siro.
If his stress level continues. Now, talk about stress levels. The boys are trying to get on. I hope they can get on because I was wanting to speak to them, Scott, about a number of issues. Celtic and Aston Villa have got a huge game tonight, and you'd like to think full attention would be on it. But there's so much going on today with both clubs. Obviously, Cameron Carter-Vickers, bad blow for Celtic. Then came the news from UEFA, confirmation that Dyson Maida has been hit with a 2-game ban, so will be out
Which is harsh, isn't it?
I think
Very
it's harsh, aye. And he's going to miss the first leg of the playoff match, which is a bit of a body blow as well. Celtic still need to try and get Arsenal to the line in terms of getting the Kieran Tierney deal done and dusted, so that that he can come back next week. But while all that's going on, down the road, Aston Villa they've loaned Emilia Buendia to Leverkusen this afternoon. They've fended off a £72 million bid from Arsenal for Ollie Watkins a couple hours before kick-off, by the way. And they've also got interest from the Saudi Pro League in John Duran. So, I mean, Unai Emery, when you've kind of got a Champions League match to prepare for of this significance and scale and the chance of last eight, it's hardly ideal to have these things coming across your desk.
It's amazing though, you're right, and it's a consequence, I suppose, of the new format, the Champions League, because we're not used to having these games. I was so close to deadline day. So you're right, I mean, he's the type of manager, I think he's pretty kind of single-minded, tunnel vision. I'm sure the game is the only thing on his mind, but he must be aware of what's going on in the background, because people will be telling him if bids are going in and there's interest there and there's huge decisions to make for the
It's a distraction that you can do without.
You're right, and especially he's got the two strikers there, Watkins and Duran, two brilliant players. It's a kind of tough situation in terms of normally you've one main striker and maybe the backup is not quite as good. I think at Villa the two of them are almost equally as good, and that's why there's speculation, because Duran isn't happy playing second fiddle to Watkins every week.
But the Saudi Pro League.
Well, exactly. I mean
that's another Jota, and you've just seen what's happened there.
But they'll not be the only teams interested, Jack. I would expect teams in the Premier League and the big European leagues to be interested in Duran if there's any chance of him going. Given what he's shown for Villa, mostly coming off the bench. But as you say, I mean, if bids are now coming in for Watkins,
£72 million, it's not an insignificant number.
Exactly. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame, because then it'll be in Emery's mind or Villa's mind. Will they be cash in on Watkins, and Duran becomes the main striker at Villa? So there's loads of different scenarios there, and I think you're right. I think it's probably a distraction they could do without before this.
Especially Ollie Watkins, he's such a talisman, and what happens? Celtic must be hoping you go into this game, and the hope is that the two guys that they're most reliant on for goals, their heads are all over the shop.
100%.
Because if I'm Ollie Watkins and I know Arsenal just had a bid for £72 million put in, I think I'd be kind of quite interested in having a conversation about that.
100%. I mean, at this stage in his career, I don't doubt he's happy at Villa, but you do feel as if going to Arsenal, where you're probably going to be challenging for the league title in the next couple of years. Ollie Watkins is a guy who's trying to, for the last couple of years, has been trying to force his way into the England starting lineup on a regular basis, and he might feel going to Arsenal just elevates him that wee bit more.
And there's a potential, because what Arsenal have been crying out for is a number 9, a goal scorer, to give them a chance of taking the next step and actually winning a title, not just hanging about at the top end of the table.
Yeah, that's. I think most people would agree that's the kind of missing piece of the jigsaw for Arsenal at the moment, as a proper centre forward. I mean, they've obviously had Jesus playing there. They've got Havertz, who's not a natural number 9, I don't think. They've been crying out for a proper centre forward for a couple of seasons now, and Watkins or Duran would fit the bill for Arsenal. Do you know what I mean?
Right, well, look, I mean, hopefully we will come back to discuss Celtic's game at Villa Park tonight, hopefully with Michael and Craig, who are outside the ground, as we say, struggling to get a line on to us just now. You think a Villa win? I'm going to go a Celtic draw. But I'm really looking forward to the match itself. I think, as we were discussing last night, I think this one could catch fire. Even if the coaches don't want it to be that, I've just got a feeling that you put two British teams,
don't
Scotland
disagree.
versus England, up against each other, a packed out stadium. I think the thing could just light.
Yep. No, I don't disagree. And I hope John McGinn starts. I know he's struggling a wee bit with injury, came on at the weekend, but it'd be great for him to start against Celtic.
I know John McGinn.
It might be one of his tackles that just ignites it.
Yeah, I know he plays a little bit wider, doesn't he, at Villa, and a little bit further forward, but the kind of thought of if it was John McGinn versus Cal McGregor in the midfield,
brilliant.
what a tear up that could end up.
That'd be great.
So, look, as we said, we'll wait and see the boys. We'll come back to this anyway because, it's such an important game. But earlier on today, Rangers were also preparing for a Thursday night game against Union Saint-Gilloise. Again, it's another one of those that you don't know quite how important it's going to be in the final shake-up, the final analysis. I think both teams are on 11 points.
Yep.
But what was interesting, Scott, was that Philippe Clement was asked a variety of questions about some very interesting topics, starting off, of course, with the SFA's decision, which took up so much of our time last night to discuss the kind of decision to U-turn, reverse ferret, whatever you want, on Nick Walsh's red card to Mohamed Diamondi at Tannadice at the weekend. Here's what he said.
I don't know if it's successful. I think it's just common logic, and it was common logic for everybody after the game. You guys also were directly convinced about that. So it's a normal thing. It's good that there is a good system that you can appeal. It's good also that VR did their job during the game, and they were clear that it was not a red card. So it's good that the system works. Of course, it's a big difference now when it's the last 2 minutes of the game. And this happens and it doesn't have any influence on the result. It would have been totally different, of course, if this would have happened in the first half and you need to play a long time with 10 players, because then it impacts the game also. But that was not the case, so I think everybody's happy about it.
Is that one you would seek more communication on, or is that a line drawn under the issue?
No, I don't think there needs to be much more communication. So everybody made clear that it was not a red card, and that there was a mistake made, and we continue now.
Yeah, and then Scott, I think he was also asked a little bit about what's likely to happen, Rangers ins and outs, and the recent story linking Jefte with interest from Chelsea.
100% sure, yes. So I know that kind of clubs. I had some players going there, or similar clubs. Maybe one day, not maybe, if he makes a normal evolution, what he's been doing now, I think one day he will be ready for that. But for the moment, it's too early, and I think this is a really good place for him to develop. So he's totally not busy with all these rooms. Totally not.
It's a fine balance, striking it when you have young talent, the likes of Jefte and Hamza Igaman, and are linked with big clubs, and Rangers need to have this player trading model, is trying to decide how long to keep a hold of them and when is the right time to sell them.
Yeah, that's not something new. So I had the same in Genk. Trossard could have left also earlier in Genk to go to Premier League. We had talks with him about that, but staying. Also other players like Sander Berg. So it's important to do the right step at the right moment, because we see also a lot of players making a step higher and not being ready, and then losing themselves because they're not playing afterward because they were not ready. So it was the same in Bruges with players. It was the same in Monaco with players. So it's not something new. So I have experience around it. I've been speaking with players around that also. And I understand one moment when it's a good situation for and the club and the player. And it's not the nicest thing as a manager, but you need to let them go also. And you need to be proud of them that they can make that step. So we will work in the same way at Rangers.
And then I think Jack Butland was also up in front of the assembled media today and reliving a very awkward European moment at Old Trafford.
The life of a keeper is a very unforgiving one. You know, I came away from that game at Old Trafford, one of those where you look back on it, you just think you didn't really put much of a foot wrong. You make a lot of saves. I look back on all of it. You know, like from a set play perspective, they're a handful. Caused us all problems that we dealt with pretty well, all in all. Like I said, you make your saves. You look back on the distribution, the passes I made, and the decisions I made, the positions I took up. But the life of a keeper, it takes one moment and you're the villain sort of immediately. And the biggest thing from those games is to look back at it, take from it the facts, take from the realities, and for large parts, if not the majority of it, didn't put a foot wrong. So you sort of come away shaking your head in disbelief at times. But being a goalkeeper is like that. There's maximum punishment. You know, I look back at that situation, that goal in particular, and I look at what I did, and what I did was trying to be positive on the front foot, trying to help the team out, and I made the right decision to come. Just executed it, not in the way that I wanted to. So if you're able to look at it like that, with games coming thick and fast, you can quite easily move on. Doesn't mean you forget about it, but you can take comfort in the fact that you were trying to do the right things. You're trying to be positive and you're trying to help out, and then look at the good stuff that I did do.
Scott, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about Rangers. I've also spoken to Andy Newport today, who was down speaking to everybody at Auchenhowie and then speaking to the Belgians over at Ibrox. In terms of this Celtic performance, let's just kind of, or this match, let's kind of drill into some of the details there. In terms of how you expect Brendan Rodgers to line up tonight, there are some big question marks, aren't there? I mean, the Cameron Carter-Vickers one, there's not that much to decide. It's just Scales and Trusty. But in other areas of the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about big decisions. I mean, I said earlier, I think the players that will come in are Scales, Yang and Ida. I mean, the only decision I think Brendan Rodgers has tonight, with Maeda missing, he could put another midfielder in there and try and shore it up a wee bit, try and be a wee bit more narrow. No, because he's got Bernardo and McCowan.
Play McCowan.
Yeah.
And play tighter in the middle.
Yeah, he could. I mean, if you think you're going to be in for a tough night at Villa and you're going to need to be compact and you're going to need to defend for large spells in the game, you might want an extra body. We know how strong Villa in the middle of the park. We mentioned it last night with Kamara and Tielemans and Onana and people like that potentially playing. So I think that's the decision, and I did think about it today, what Rodgers would do, because he put Yang in. He's been a kind of fringe player at Celtic. He's never really.
Do you think he trusts him for a game like this?
Nah, I mean, he's never.
I'm not sure that he does.
Nah, he's never been trusted to really start.
And by the way, I'm not
games.
sure that I would, if I was Brendan Rodgers.
I don't disagree, but all I would say is,
if you want to keep your system,
exactly, you're kind of shoehorning somebody in, and I don't think Brendan Rodgers likes it. I think he likes his system.
He likes the width.
He likes the style. He likes the width. He likes pace. Although Yang isn't at the same level as Maeda and he's a different type of player, I think he'll just go with him just to keep the shape.
Do you know?
And he might change it later on.
What about Lewis Palmer? Because he has actually contributed at Champions League level. He's got goals and assists at this level. I know that his days look numbered, but is this maybe the perfect chance for him to come into the team and say,
honestly,
farewell to the fans?
I thought about that as well, because you're right. Your instinct goes to Yang, because in your mind you think, well, Palmer is away, but I mean he's still there at the moment.
He's still getting a wage.
If you think you can use him, and you're right, I mean he probably has got a bit more experience. Palmer, he has contributed at Champions League level. I think he would trust Yang more to do the defensive side of the game than Palmer. I think Palmer can maybe be a wee bit lazy at times in terms of tracking back.
Yeah,
whether that will come into his thinking, I don't know.
I just wonder if he's got a little bit more composure in the final third. With some of his deliveries, I think he can cut in from the right. He's got a great shot in him.
I think he's got more of a goal through it from set pieces and open play. So, to get back to the point, he could play McCowan, he could play McCowan off the left,
Who's done nothing wrong, by the way.
who can tuck in and he's clever. I'm sure Bernardo could do a similar job, but I just think his instincts will be just to go the same kind of system and just replace Maida kind of like for like on the left hand side. But no, I think that's a big decision. I think Engels, Hatate, McGregor start in the midfield. I think Scales comes in at left back with Trusty.
Left centre back.
Left centre back with obviously Johnson and Taylor at full back. So no, I think that'll be the one big decision for him.
Right, and obviously Adamida has to take the responsibility of leading the attack. Huge night for him, given the context of what's just happened, that Kyogo's out the door. There is this massive opportunity for him now.
Yeah.
We still expect Celtic to go and sign a striker before the transfer window closes. So Adamida, you kind of get the feeling he's just going back into his box as the second choice, unless he's given from nowhere an opportunity to go and do something and make his mark and say, that's my claim. I should be leading this.
That's the challenge for Ida, is to make sure that doesn't happen. I mean, if Celtic are going to go out and sign a striker, which I'm sure they will, but you don't know how long that striker's going to take to bed in at Celtic and settle. I mean, they were fortunate in the sense that it felt like Kyogo just hit it off instantly when he arrived at Celtic under Postecoglou.
You've never seen somebody hit the ground running quite
exactly.
like it.
But that,
by the way, he didn't stop until he left for Rennes.
Exactly, but that doesn't always happen, as you know, with strikers. So Rodgers, even in his mind, will think, if it is going to be a face garden or whoever, he's going to need Ida. No, he might need the Ida initially while this guy's finding his feet.
To carry some of the weight.
So as you say, Ida needs a big performance tonight. He's got to make if that's in Brendan Rodgers' mind, I'm signing a guy to be first choice and Ida will be back up again. He's got to try and change the manager's mindset on that, and the best way to do that is performing in a game like this. And he's going back to England as well.
See, I think that's huge. And Brendan Rodgers gave him the big billing when he signed him.
Yep.
Last January sales, he said, look, as soon as I saw his name on the list of possible signings, it leapt off the page at me, because I've seen this guy up close and personal.
Yep.
For me, he's a Premier League striker. He's got all the tools to become a successful 25 million pound striker in the English Premier League. Yep. But if Adamida believes that, and if Adamida wants to prove it, then what a chance to go down and showcase himself.
You're right. And I think he's capable, Jack, on his day. But I think at the moment, he looks to me like he's lacking a wee bit of confidence. And I don't know whether that's been just playing second fiddle to Kyogo and not quite hitting it. I mean, I think he went a wee run there, kind of 6 or 7 games without a goal.
His body language hasn't been great.
No. You saw the relief, even the goal against Young Boys. It's an OG. I mean, he celebrated it as if he'd stuck at the top corner for 25 yards. You know what I mean? He was just so delighted to be involved in a goal. It wasn't his goal. But I think that told its own...
It's a significant contributory factor.
Well, I think that told its own story, though, because desperate to make an impact, desperate to make a contribution, desperate to see that the ball hit the back of the net again when he's in and around it. So, hopefully that'll have lifted him a wee bit. As you say, Kyogo gone now, he pretty much knows, he'll have known for the last few days that he's starting this game. So, it's a big night for him.
Mark Fairfield, a regular contributor watching live on YouTube. Next 6 months for Ida is make or break for me. Yeah, Mark's, I think, not a big fan. If he doesn't improve massively, he should be showing the door in the summer. I don't think that's going to happen. Celtic have spent a lot of money on him, and there is an obligation now on Adamida to improve, and for Brendan Rodgers, he's the guy that kind of Celtic are banking on to bring the best out of Adamida. Plus, I think wait to see what tonight brings, because he looks to me, he did get that little bit of a break, and we've been talking about he needs to want to fly in off his backside or something. Well, that was the equivalent, the own goal equivalent of it.
Yep.
So who knows? Night could be a big night for Adamida.
Yeah, and also, listen, if he doesn't perform between now and the end of the season, your man's saying there, just show him the door, as if it's that simple. I mean, Celtic have invested £9 million in this guy. How do you show him the door after 6 months of no scoring and no performing. If that happens, it'll be Brendan Rodgers' job to get him back firing again. No, over the summer.
Unless Celtic can get, and by the way the Celtic are dealing in the transfer market, who's to say they can't make £3 million profit on him still?
I know. Probably go to Saudi for like 20 million if no scored a goal.
Come back for 200,000. Oh man, right. So anyway, the bad news is, Scott. I've been contacted by the boys down. Said they're not. I know. It's a no-show, right?
Didn't have these problems in Manchester last week.
No, Daniel's left us in the lurch. Now the boys have thrown one in.
They're deserting us one by one.
There's no appetite for this.
Terrible.
But one man who did make himself available to come to his work earlier on today, Scott, not including yourself, obviously. Andy Newport, who, as I said, he did a double header press conference today, one at Auchenhowie, and one with Union Saint-Gilloise at Ibrox. And here's Andy's kind of view on what was said by the kind of main contributors. Andy, another Champions League, Europa League midweek, another busy day for yourself. You've had quite a few people to speak to today.
Yeah, was up at the training ground earlier on, speaking to Jack Butland and Fluke Clement, and then just had to hop foot it over here to Ibrox to do the Union Saint-Gilloise press conference. So we've just spoke to their manager, and Anthony Marais, one of the players, one of the two players that were involved here a couple of years ago when they were here in that Champions League.
That's right, there's only two left.
Yeah, there's a third one. Christian Burgess, he's suspended, but in terms of pretty much like Rangers, I mean, there's been a pretty big overhaul in the time since, so there's not too many familiar faces from either side kicking about.
In terms of what Clement said, Andy, some interesting topics were flung at him today. How do you think he dealt with it? Give us a flavour of what was said.
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of speaking about Mohamed Diamande and his red card getting overturned. Said it was what was the phrase he used? Common sense, something along the lines of that. Common logic, I think it was the phrase he used. So
it was very statement-like.
Yeah, I mean, I think he realised the right decision has been made. They don't need to, pick any more fights over this. I mean, I think we all agreed it was a pretty strange decision in the first place. Especially there's no contact made. I'm not even sure you can argue intent. I think obviously he's been pushed, he's fallen over. Whether he swung an arm or he's just flailing an arm out, nobody can really say that for definite. So the fact he was sent off was strange, but the fact it's been rectified, he did make the point. Listen, this was a very, it was a safe sending off in the sense that it happened right at the end. It didn't change the impact of the game. I think he would have been more concerned had this sort of incident happened midway through a game, and where it could have led to bigger repercussions. So I think the fact that, listen, it was happened right in stoppage time, pretty much last kick of the ball, we were able to overturn it, there's no harm done, we'll move on. But I think if something like that were to happen again, I think you'd see him be a wee bit more forthright in his opinions. He's
actually keeping a lid on it quite well, isn't he? Because he has got reason to be frustrated, but as I said, it's kind of statement like the way that he's dealing with it. He's not losing the rag, and he was the guy that sort of walked the Rangers board back from kind of declaring all-out war on Willie Collum, etc. earlier this season. I think he's doing quite a good job of that side of it.
I mean, he has had these moments where he's chosen to let rip. I'm thinking of Easter Road only a few weeks ago with that penalty call where he was obviously very unhappy with that. He was obviously furious after the game at Tannadice, but I think he realised in this latest circumstance that, there's no great harm done. The match has already been won. It's been fairly quick process to get it overturned. There's not going to be a suspension. There's no point in going to war, so to speak. I think some of the Rangers fans were ready to get the pitchforks out and start and march one-handed, given just the sort of outcry that followed the weekend. But listen, it's been put to bed now. As you say, there's no price to be paid for it in a sense. Like, they've not dropped points. I think like perhaps the game Easter Road, that was a match-changing incident, and you can understand why Clement was so unhappy with it. I think looking back at that incident, I think it was a fairly 50-50 one. I think you can understand.
I thought he had a point that day as well, to be fair, Andy.
It's a difficult one because you can make the argument both ways, but I can see why he was so angry that day, because it was, it had huge outcome on how that game ended.
Material impact on the match, yeah.
You know, they were 2-0 up at the time, and then that got sort of Hibs going again. So, but this is one that you can say that it's a bad decision. The refs made a mistake. It's easily rectified just because of circumstances. If it happens again, it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to that.
On the transfer ins and outs, Andy, what was his view on that? I heard a little bit of it earlier. I think he was asked predominantly about Jefte and Chelsea.
Yeah, just listen. I think he's making the point that that he's of the firm opinion that Jefte is on a track that is the sort of kind of level that he'll be heading to. But he's a young player and he's got a lot of development to go through before he can get to that. And from Philippe Clement's point of view, understandably, he thinks right here at Ibrox is the place where he should be doing that. I think you can understand why he'll be keen. He'll be keen, absolutely determined not to lose MD. That he doesn't want to lose this season. Obviously, there's a few players have checked out, a few of the fringe men, perhaps a few more to go before Monday's deadline. But for the likes of Jefte, for the likes of Hamza Gamani and Nico Raskin, these are guys that it's unthinkable for Rangers to sell at this point because, put it simply, they're not going to be able to replace them. Not in this window, given we all know how difficult it is to recruit in this window, especially
unless you're Celtic.
Yeah, well, but especially with they've got something Rangers don't, and that's bills of money.
Cash.
Yeah. And you just see the way it's been a slow window down the road, and that always has a sort of knock-on effect, especially up here when you're looking for clubs that are clubs are just trying to cherry pick fringe men from Premier League clubs, and that it's not really kicked off down there. So business is slow, and Rangers are just not going to be in any position to recruit the kind of guys that can come in and replace their key men. So, and given they're so short in bodies right now with injuries, and even tomorrow night with guys that are not in the UEFA squad, they're just not in a position to be getting rid of guys right now that are playing a part, that are playing a key role. So, listen, Jefte's a guy that I think we were all sort of surprised when we saw those links coming out with Chelsea, but I think there is some evidence to back up why somebody like a Chelsea would be interested in him in terms of his physical output, his stats in terms of the way he covers the ground, the way he passes, the way his succession rate for how he links up with his teammates. I think he's got a pretty significant way to go before he can properly
Needs to work on his defending, Andy, didn't he?
Yeah, but that's why clubs like Chelsea are looking at him, because they'll see the raw
attributes, yeah.
Believe, like Rangers obviously believe when they picked him up in the summers that they can polish him up, and like I think Chelsea have shown that as much as they've spent a lot of money in the last few years, they can't continue like that, and they have to start looking at getting more cost-effective signings in. So, but Philippe Clement is a definite opinion. This is a guy that needs to stay here and do his development here before he can move on, because he's not ready. He's not ready for the Premier League yet. Absolutely, I think that other night showed that. Going forward, yeah, I think there's definitely something there. But I've said it since pre-season. There's moments when he switches off, when he doesn't have those wing mirrors on, doesn't see with the danger behind him. And he's obviously that Bruno Fernandes goal sort of highlighted that. So he's got some growing to do, some learning to do, some developing to do. And Philippe Clement believes that Rangers is the place to do it.
Andy, I won't keep you much longer, but I'm going to throw a curveball at you before you go. Seeing as how Celtic are bringing the band back together on the other side of the city, there have been loads of rumours, I'm sure you'll be aware, about Ryan Kent and a possible return to Rangers. Now, there's only a few days remaining. Is this even possible, or is this just flight of fancy stuff?
It's an interesting one, because we asked Philippe Clement about this maybe, I'm thinking 2 months ago, when Ryan Kent first negotiated his exit out of Fenerbahce, and Philippe Clement, he's a guy that when you ask him about transfers is quick to shoot things down, especially if it's something that there's truth in. And he didn't really shoot it down. He spoke about how he'd been an admirer of him. He knew all about how he'd even tried to sign him before Ryan Kent came here to join up with Steven Gerrard. So, listen, I think if it was a deal that was doable, I think he would be interested, but I think that's now a position where Rangers have certainly got options in, and I'm not sure. You'd have to think about Ryan Kent's
wage demands,
because that was effectively the reason why he left in the first place. He was asked, Dougie Park at the AGM admitted as much, saying that the Rangers had gone as far as they could in terms of what wages they could offer. You imagine going to Turkey, he's getting paid a fair whack more than he would be getting paid here. So he's obviously not
again like Jota. Was he happy?
Yeah, exactly. But is he now think is he earned enough while he's over there to think, I can go back and slum it at Ibrox, if that's the phrase you want to use? Or is he thinking, well, there's still other places, other leagues, even a return to England where he could probably earn a lot more than he did here, or a lot more without the hassle of living in Glasgow. I know he loved living in Glasgow. That was a bit, he was reluctant to leave Glasgow when he was here first time round. Obviously, there was that speculation about bids from Leeds, and I know that obviously Leeds came in from with big money offers, and it was him who knocked it back. I think against the advice of his agents at the time, which surprised them. So I know he previously did enjoy living in the city. It's it's just whether or not he decides he would think it would be worthwhile going back. I think there's a player there.
Thanks, Andy.
Cheers, Keith. Cheers,
Speak to you tomorrow. Cheers, mate.
No worries, mate. Catch you. Ta-ra.
That was all a bit abrupt at the end. Cheers, Andy.
Best way to get rid of him. He was going on a bit, to be fair.
What's your thoughts, just before we move on Ryan Kent? Do you think that's possible for Rangers? I mean, Celtic have certainly set a trend, haven't they?
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head with the finances at the end. I think that's what would hold it back. But I agree with what you said. I think for Ryan Kent to get his happiness back and get his career back on track, you'd like to think money wouldn't be at the forefront of his mind just now. He has to get back playing football. I mean, he's disappeared off the face of the earth for.
Well, Jota hasn't come back to Celtic on the same wages as he was getting at Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. Do I think he'd be a good player for Rangers? I'm not a huge fan of going back and getting people that you've...
Kieran Tierney, Jota, Brendan Rodgers.
Roger, different, I think.
Walter Smith.
A manager. Different
Richard
managers.
Goff.
I know. But your man's not all the good ones. Many bad ones as there been. I don't know. Listen, where Rangers have been the last kind of year, 18 months, Ryan Kent would obviously get in the team. But when he was here, and listen, maybe he was a bit underappreciated when he was here. Maybe people took him for granted a wee bit in terms of what he gave Rangers. I remember when we used to do podcasting at the time, we always went on about his numbers weren't good enough in terms of goals and assists. But what he did give Rangers was a real threat.
What podcast were you doing? Yeah.
Pace. We used to do the record podcast, did we know? You just forgot about that now.
It's expunged. Well, I'm a Hotline Live guy.
That was how we started. That was how you brought me through the ranks, Jackal. His numbers probably weren't great, but when you think of what he actually gave Rangers as a team in terms of the threat for the left-hand side, pace, crucially, by the way, in Old Firm games, you felt as if he was the one player or one of the players that Celtic actually feared.
Thought that he could do damage if they weren't
100%.
aware of him. Aye.
Rangers for the last few years, Rangers, I don't think have really had that. So I wouldn't totally rule it out or be against it, but I'd be surprised if it happened.
Right, Scott, I'm just checking. I'm trying to find if we can get some team news from Villa Park, but as yet the teams haven't dropped, and of course Craig Swan and Mick Gannon have gone AWOL, so they can't help us out either. One final thing probably worth talking about before we head off and get back up the road, watch this match tonight. Rangers' new assistant boss for Philip Clement. Couple of things very interesting. One, he's just signed a 3.5-year contract. What does that tell you? Two, do you want to try his name or will I?
No, you.
Okay. Thanks for that, my dyslexia. I'm getting done in by everybody here. It's Sami Karai, Belgian, with I think a Moroccan background. And what was interesting is that he was manager of Morocco's under-23s when they won the African Nations Cup. And guess who was their striker?
Very interesting. I think there's a few elements to this, Jacko. One of them is, I quite like the fact that Clement is not just settling for the backroom team that he's got.
Well, he's lost one, hasn't he?
He's lost Andries Uldering, who's obviously went back to Holland. But again, he could have just he could have said, well, look, I've got Stefan van der Heyden, we've got Alec Ray, Brian Gilmer, people like that in there. That'll do us to the end of the season. But he's no content with that. No, he wants new ideas. He wants another guy in there, a fresh face. So I think that's important. The other thing, as you say, is Eagleman. We don't know all the details, but it appears that this guy had Eagleman, obviously, in the Morocco under-23s.
Well, you said a very interesting thing to me a week or so ago on the Hotline Live, where I asked you, was Eagleman a Clement signing or was he a Niels Coppin? And you said, and I'd heard very similar, that this was actually one that Clement had his fingerprints on, and it was because he had a contact who knew Eagleman from Moroccan football. Yeah. Is this the guy? Well, this could be the payback for him.
We're putting two and two together, but there's every chance. You've got to think, I'm pretty sure the Eagleman signing, Clement has said it was his kind of contact in Morocco that helped with that and recommended him to Rangers and helped make it happen. It could be this guy. And as I say, if he's had Eagleman at international level and given him his chance by all accounts, you'd think he'd be a bit of a mentor to Eagleman. So not only is Eagleman getting another Moroccan or Belgian Moroccan in the building, which you would think would help in terms of him settling into Glasgow and Scotland or whatever, it also kind of made me think, listen, it depends what bids might come in for Eagleman or might not come in, but does this help Rangers maybe keep Eagleman for a season longer than it might have been, because he's got this guy here? And crucially, the other thing is, does this now give or help Rangers get access to other young Moroccan players?
North African market.
Because they've got this guy here. I think that could be really, really interesting, given the impact that Eagleman's made so soon since arriving.
And of course, the fact remains that, at a point where we're writing stories on a weekly basis and opinion pieces, wondering if Clement, when the axe might fall, how much longer he's got, is he on a game-to-game basis here? Patrick Stewart has sanctioned a 3.5-year contract for the assistant. Kind of tells you, I'm not sure how delighted Rangers fans will be about that, but it tells me that they very much see Clement still being a long-term manager, a long-term solution.
I agree with you. I mean, you're right, 3.5 years is
a lot of money for
an assistant.
A lot of time for an assistant. Usually these guys, you would just think they'll sign on a yearly basis.
Well, I think that's certainly the case with the coaches that are there now. I mean, I don't think like Alec Ray or Van der Heyden, I don't think are on big contracts or lengthy contracts. So they obviously see something in this guy for the long term. Maybe even if Clement is there or not. But as you say...
What, are you saying that he could be the next Rangers manager?
Well,
that's a leap.
Well, who knows? But they clearly see something in the guy, obviously recommended by Clement. But you're right, your initial reaction is, this suggests Clement and him and his team are going to be here for the next couple of years. That's what they're planning for.
Either that or the guy's just getting a brilliant finder's fee for Eagleman.
Well, exactly. Aye.
Right, listen, we need to go up the road. I want to watch this game. I want to be sat in front of the telly.
Definitely.
Before kick-off, listening to the atmosphere build, and we'll be back. I don't know if you'll be back. Are you back? You sleeping in here tonight?
I need to go to Ibrox tomorrow night.
Oh, well, we'll get you on from Ibrox tomorrow night. Again, another big midweek. I think Celtic are going to go out of town with a draw tonight. I think it's going to be a great match. Scott's not so sure. But we'll do it all again tomorrow night. And listen, once again, folk back at home, can't thank you enough. The comments are firing. I'm sorry if I'm not very good at getting them all fired up. I've tried to get as many mentions on as I possibly can. I am handicapped without Daniel Coe. Of that, there is no question. Anyway, we'll try it all again tomorrow night. Cheers, guys. Enjoy the game.